Hello, everyone. My name is Dara, and this is Dear Hallmark. You are watching and or listening to another installment of the Dear Hallmark Masterclass. This is a series of conversations where I have the honor and the opportunity to talk with people who work behind the scenes of the movies that we know and love. And today I have a very special guest. He is a production designer. His name is Daniel King. Daniel, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. I'm a big fan of Dear Hallmark, so I'm excited to be on here.
Oh, wait a minute. I wasn't expecting that. Oh, thank you. Thank you. So, I want to ask you an icebreaker question before we kind of get into the crux of our conversation. So, what is a really, really good meal that you've had lately that just like, oh, it just made your heart sing?
Well, right now I'm in Connecticut on a movie that hopefully you'll be watching later this year. And so the seafood here is amazing.
Oh, I
And
bet.
so yesterday I had a lobster roll,
Oh,
which was which was really good, and it was done the Connecticut way, which at least I'm sure that people will probably correct me on this, but the Connecticut way is like with butter on it, so it's like very buttery lobster rolls.
oh,
So
uh-oh. Ooh, my mouth started watering. The jaws. Oh my goodness. That
mhm.
sounds so good. I had on the vein of seafood yesterday, I just took a day off of work because I just needed a day. And I ordered from my favorite place and they have these shrimp tacos. Daniel. Oh my gosh. They're spiced to perfection. They have this like pickled cabbage something or other that they put, and it's three like miniature tacos, and it was just the dream. So I guess we both had really good seafood experiences as of late. That's really cool.
Nice.
So let's get into it. Can you tell the people a little bit about your background, where you come from, and just kind of what got you into production design?
Yeah. So my name's Daniel. I am a production designer on several different types of films, but Hallmark recently has done a lot with them. And I'm originally from Texas. I live now in Arizona,
Mm.
and I always was I was a big fan of movies growing up, and then I also I really enjoyed making my own movies, and so like in high
Oh.
school, I would instead of doing like book reports or speeches in class, I would turn it in. I'd do an extra thing. I'd make a movie out of it. So I'd do movie reports
Oh, that's
and
cool.
present those. Yeah, and so like that's kind of how I got started. And then I decided I wanted to go to college for filmmaking. So I did that, and then afterwards, I found my way onto a film set, and they put me in the art department, and I realized that I was actually a very handy person, and so it was a
Mm.
nice way to combine my like kind of my hobbies and my work life, and so that's kind of why I've done well in the art department to get to where I am now.
What would you say is your favorite part about filmmaking?
I like the storytelling element of it.
Mm.
So I'm kind of a romantic in a lot of ways, and so
Hmm.
like I like
Hmm.
to try to take the script and make little like side stories in my own. Like when I'm designing a room, I like to try to like think of like a backstory for this character and be like, oh, this person's really into this or this person's that. And so I like kind of I don't know creating these little I don't know additional character elements into things, or trying to figure out ways I can have fun creating additional designs into the world that they have. So
I
that's fun.
love that. Okay, so let's get into it. If someone were to ask you what is a production designer, how can you talk to us about what exactly a production designer, what do they do?
Yeah, it's the kind of probably broad, complex like definition would be that they're in charge of everything that you would see visually on the screen,
Mm.
and like the tone and textures and like the styles of what's being presented. Um, so like the director of photography is like has the camera and kind of shows how you're seeing the world, and
Okay.
then the production designer is the one who creates the world that they are filming. So
Oh,
um, yeah, so I guess the easier term would be like they're the head of the art department.
okay.
They also have input into things like costuming with like certain elements of it. or
Okay.
how other departments are kind of operating. But generally, it's the art department that they're the head of.
So have you worked with fake snow on like Christmas sets? That would be under
Oh
your
yeah,
purview. Oh yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So like, there's a lot of like kind of sub departments below the production designer. So there's like you could have your set dressers, set decorators,
Okay.
your art like construction, like building, your props department, and then
Mm.
there's like things like that, like snow that might impact it. Like we have like a lighting team, so I'm like overseeing lighting
Yeah.
and not like film lighting, but like Christmas lights and things like that.
Sure. 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 Sure.
So yeah, there's a lot of small details that go into it, and then I just kind of oversee the broadness of it.
Okay. Have you, in your career, have you had experience working in those other departments that fall under production, like the broader umbrella of production design? And what was that like for you working in those departments?
Yeah, I think that's probably the most important thing is to have experience in it because a lot of what
Yeah.
I'm doing is dictate like kind of I'm the between like the producers and the art department.
Oh,
And so
okay.
a lot of times I'm making decisions of what the other people are will be doing. And if I don't
Mm.
know like the time or the cost or like how it needs to be done, and I'm making commitments to, Hallmark or the director about what we can accomplish, like, and it's not accurate, then that could cause a big problem. So I have to know really like the details of how those work. So yeah, so I worked as a prop master significantly, and then I've done plenty of movies as a set dresser and construction, and so I generally have a good idea of what it takes to be able to do things. And for this movies, like these types of movies, we shoot them very quickly. Like
Right.
there's usually like 3 weeks of prep, 3 weeks of shooting, and so you have a very tight window to be able to accomplish everything that you have to do. And so
Wow.
knowing exactly what's needed is very important. So,
So let's go into that a little bit. You say it's 3 weeks of prep. So walk us through. So, like, let's say you get the call that you're going to be the production designer on, let's just say, Unexpected Christmas. I'm just throwing out a movie. And so,
mhm.
what happens once you get that call? Like, what goes into the
Yeah.
prep? Mm-hmm.
So they'll give me the script,
Mm-hmm.
like usually right away, and I'll read it. I'll break it down, kind of everything that associates with my department, and then I'll fly to wherever they're at, and we'll spend the first week of prep just going to locations that the location
Mm.
manager has found, trying to
Okay.
pick the ones that we think fit the story best or fit the production abilities the best, and then if all goes well and we find like locations by the end of that week, then week two kind of turns into now we know what we need to, how we need to change things, what we need to alter, what we need to bring in and shift. And so then we can start sourcing, trying to find like, elements, like start hiring specific crew for doing things like constructions. And then the third week would be more like trying to be hands on location, trying to build the stuff, get it set
Mm.
in, and then a lot of meetings. There's a whole lot of meetings in that time frame too. So
And do you guys have a budget for that stuff that you have to stay in as well for that?
yeah,
Yeah. What
yeah, we
was,
do, and
sorry,
it's
go ahead.
usually no, it's usually on another part of like that prep phase is I have to go
Okay.
through and try to create a budget for what we're going to be able to do it under, and then that's what the line producer then uses to help figure everything out. So
Mm. Can you talk about a time where, I don't want to say, I'll just say, can you talk about a time where the production design got really, really expensive for a movie that you were working
well,
on?
well, I'm very like one of my big things is I don't want to go over budget. Like I try really,
Mm.
really hard to make sure that we don't go over budget. So I do a very detailed breakdown of every
Mm.
set and every item that we're going to get and my estimated cost of how much it's going to be. And
Ooh.
then that way we can work with that to help see how we're doing throughout the process. Cause it's very easy to like, as you're in the moment, be like, we need a lamp, we need a this, we need a that. And
Mm.
if you didn't budget properly, then you might be going over budget very easily. And so if
Oh.
if you know what you've already spent, then you can know that like, oh, I saved money on that set. Maybe I can spend it over here on this set instead. So I haven't had too many experiences of having getting things very expensive, but a lot of times there's specific scenes or moments that I try to spend heavier on. Like I always the first scene of the movie is the one that's going to catch the audience, bring them into the movie.
Mm,
And
mm-hmm.
so like I don't want to do a poor job on that scene. I want to make sure that one looks good. The scene where like they like fall in love, I want to make sure, like
Mm,
I give that like a lot of like attention. And then usually like the climax at the end, like the like if they're having like a proposal or something like that scene, I want to make sure it's super romantic and like beautiful. So like those key moments I try to put more money towards.
yeah.
And then yeah.
So, because it sounds like there is a lot of, I'll just say it, like interior design in a sense. Like if you have an interior design background or like an architecture background or an interior architecture background, is there a way for someone who has that background to transition into into a role like yours?
There is, yeah, a lot of people have that do production design have an interior design background,
Mm,
oh, and that's what's great about filmmaking, but art department in general is that there's a lot of skill sets that are involved in art that are also involved in like the real world as well. So like if you're a
yeah.
very handy person, if you're into construction, if you're a painter, like there's so many different things that like we kind of incorporate into our department. But interior design is definitely one that would translate really well. And really, once if you have those skill sets, all you really need to do is get onto a set and learn how to
Mm,
apply it into a film production
mm-hmm.
situation. A lot of times with us, I guess that's different. Is like an interior designer would be designing something that's going to last, and for film, it's like you're designing something that's going to last for like an hour. And so a
Mm,
lot of times our walls have like they're not strong. They don't. You look on the back side of something, it's not finished at all. So
mm.
knowing like what really is going to be seen and what doesn't really matter is kind of another key element.
Yeah. Can you talk about what a typical day, so we talked about the prep, but once you get on set, what a typical day for you would look like?
Mhm. So we have a it's probably maybe you'd say production is more logistically involved, I'm sure, but
Mm,
our
mm-hmm,
department is a very heavy logistical department. We
mm,
they're filming one day, so we have to have the sets that they're filming on obviously ready and good
mm-hmm,
to go. But they if they filmed yesterday, we have to figure out how to break that stuff down and get it out of there because
yeah.
that business doesn't want us to be there longer than we have to be there. And then we're probably gonna be filming tomorrow, so we need to be dressing that set as well and getting it ready to go. And
Wow.
so we're usually kind of like torn between three places at least at one point. And so the days normally would start with I would have if we didn't wrap the night before, then we're wrapping that morning. So kind of I'll get up and make sure that's off to a good start.
Mm-hmm,
And then I'll swing over to the set and we'll be putting like final touches on dressing the set. Then crew will show up once the director and the producers are all there and have like approved it generally and like they like how it
okay.
looks.
Yeah.
Then I might ditch out and go to tomorrow's set and start working on getting that ready to go. And
Mm,
then if I can, I'll swing back over to set and just to see how it's going and make sure everything's fine. And then, but that's basically how the day is. It's kind of me jumping from set to set, trying to
mm,
make sure everything's going smoothly. A lot of the stress that we have in like an art department is that we have a long list of to-dos that we have to make happen,
mm-hmm.
all at like specific time frames. And typically we try to just stay a little bit ahead of the production the whole time. And
Okay.
um, so the fear is like one of these days, like production is going to catch up to you and you're not going to be quite ready. And so you got to always
Mm.
try to keep making progress and staying ahead. Um,
So, in your role, or is there someone in your department who's on set while filming is in process?
mhm. Yeah, they're called the onset dresser, and
Okay.
they're usually probably it should be somebody that's your most handy person, like
Mm,
just capable of like on the fly, like problem solving,
okay.
because they're they are representing us, and if like a picture falls, they need to be able to figure out how to put it back on real quick. If the
Yeah.
director's like, I need a something in this corner, like this doesn't look right, they need to be able to like look at what they've got in their like bag and how they can fix it like on the fly.
Yeah.
So there's the onset dresser, and that was actually my first position on a film was as an onset dresser, and it's a lot of fun
Oh.
because you get to be on set to be part of like that part of the production where a lot of art department takes place offset and on feature sets, so you don't get to be able to see a lot of that. So,
Was it for a Hallmark movie that you had that experience as being an on-site dresser?
no, it was a small indie film in Arizona. That was like my first production. My first Hallmark was a couple years ago with Sand Dollar Cove was my first
Oh,
Hallmark movie.
oh, that movie. I love it so much. Okay, let's talk about it. So, like, what was your, no, because honestly, I think that movie is so beautiful. It's slow in the best
Yeah,
way. Like, it's like the best inner tube ride on a lazy river. And I
right.
love it so much. So, can you talk about your vision and inspiration for how you set up that set for Sand Dollar Cove?
Well, for that one, I was prop master. I don't want to take credit for that one as production design. That was Shane Meter was the
Mm,
production designer on it. But it was a great experience. The as prop master, you get to work directly with the actors a lot, and
okay.
so that was a really enjoyable experience because they were great. They were so nice. Like the whole cast was a great cast. But that movie, yeah, it was just as like COVID was kind of like starting to open up a little bit.
Yeah,
So there was a lot
yeah.
of like restrictions still going on, and so that there was a lot of details, I guess, behind the scenes of just how to like make it work, and not a lot of stores were quite open yet, and so where
Mm.
you source things was kind of challenging. But it was yeah, it was a great movie to be a part of, and it was my first time in Connecticut as well. So like the being there on by the water and kind of that's all the cool visuals that that movie has. Like it
Yes.
was great to be there in person to see.
So, what
Yeah.
was your first Hallmark production design movie that you had a chance to do?
The first one I designed for them was Sugar Plum Twist. I don't know if you saw that
Ooh,
one.
yes, that
Yeah,
was the on Hallmark Movies Now. I think that was
yeah,
2021.
yeah. Probably so. The one with the ballet dancing.
Yes,
So
yes,
yeah.
yes, yes. Oh, that's awesome. What would you say if you could think back to a Hallmark movie that you've done? Because you've done quite a few Christmas movies, but if you could think back to a movie where you just felt like, man, this one's just there's just something about it that's really, really special in terms of like when you step back. Because I think like as a, well, I'll just say I went to school for interior design, so that's why I asked that other question.
Oh,
But
nice.
so
Okay.
when you I know like when you step back and look at a space, it's kind of like you have this feeling of like there's something special here. Have you ever
Yeah.
had that moment when you are on set of a movie as a production designer?
Yeah, I think so. There's like I kind of said, there's like romantic scenes like
Oh yeah,
where like
yeah,
I
yeah.
I really want to like I really want it to be good. Like I want that moment
Mm,
to be like what I envision it to be. And so we usually when we get to that scene, and like actually last night was kind of one of those moments where it's like this is a set I
mm,
really am putting a lot of emphasis on. And
mm,
yeah, so stepping back and seeing it on camera and being like, yes, it actually is like the beauty that I was hoping it would be. Like the twinkle lights are twinkling just the right
mm,
way, and like
mm-hmm.
the colors are doing what they need to do. So, but let's see, certain movies that like were I don't know, probably my like the movie that I think was probably most enjoyable that I felt was going to be good was Next Stop Christmas. We did that one. Um,
Yes.
I think I listened to your review and I agree with you. Like the ending was kind of weird, but the I think I think for the most part though I really enjoyed that one because we had like a really cool cast on it and they I felt like
Yes.
they really like were bringing it
Yes.
as well and
Totally
but
agree.
yeah
Totally agree. I think that movie is still super charming, and I think the chemistry between Chandler and was that
yeah
Lindsay? No,
Lindsay
Tori.
Fonseca
Lindsay
yeah
Fonseca. I always get
Lindsay
them
Fonseca yeah
confused. I love their chemistry. And
yeah
so wait, so then were you involved with the whole train and getting the train looking Christmassy? And
no well uh well so that one I was props on it as well so that was Heidi
okay.
Seidel was the production designer. But yeah, but we did do all the Christmas decorations on that train. It's a train in Connecticut, as well. There's a lot of here in Connecticut that I've done.
I was gonna say you probably be
But yeah, it was
bi-coastal with you always being in Connecticut.
yeah, but yeah, no, the train, it was this, it's a local train that does kind of like rides throughout the year. You can do little
Oh
tours,
yeah,
private
yeah,
tours
yeah.
through the area. So that's what the train was, and so they used that, and then we decorated it with Christmas to make it kind of look the way it did.
So, as a production designer, how do you source your inspiration for what you want your set to look like?
So because they're so quick, a lot of the times it's like finding the location, figuring out what location is going to be the
Mm,
one,
mm-hmm.
and then taking what's there and then seeing what you can do to alter it, and then how what works well with that. Because sometimes we can paint walls, sometimes we can't paint walls, and like that a
Mm,
lot of times usually dictates some of the color schemes that we would go with. Or yeah, that's, and then looking reading the script, seeing the character that lives in this place, or how it's being used in the scene, that'll help dictate what we're bringing in, like kind of like the affluency of the set, or like
mm,
how practical certain things are. Like if it's like a child's room, like currently right now we're decorating the set that's this character's high school room, that she's going, like she's come back home, and so she's going to
mm.
her high school bedroom. So we're trying to think of how she would have been 10 years ago, in this
Wow,
room. So
yeah.
um, but then also one thing that's like a trick, I guess I'll give away a secret, is that even when it's not Christmas, or even if it is Christmas, there's certain tones that play into certain time periods for people to watch, I guess. So like if it's a Christmas movie, even if Christmas isn't there, we need to make sure there's like reds and greens and like things that kind of tell you that you're in like a
Mm,
Christmas movie feel.
mm-hmm.
So like a lot of times I'll bring in color schemes that are appropriate for the time of the year that the viewer is going to watch it. So like if
Oh,
it's fall, it'll be more like oranges and browns and like kind of like red tone, like that tones. If it's spring, it can be more like pastels or whatever. And
yeah,
then summer, the same thing. So like thinking of how they're going to view it, and then how it works with the script, and then what's actually practical, because we got to
yeah.
be able to do this in such a quick period of time. So
Along with that, what does your collaboration look like with other departments on set, if you could speak to that? Like, are you in collaboration with,
yeah,
and I think you mentioned this a little bit, but like costuming, and other departments like that?
yeah, I would say we're mostly connected with the locations we're heavily involved with, because
Sure.
everything is so logistical with how we're in and out of certain places. And then costuming, that's a very important thing. Like there's been times where um, we've given the actor a maroon handbag, and they're wearing a red shirt or like coat, and now we have like this clashing red issue or
Mm,
something. So it's like
mm-hmm.
making sure that what the actor's wearing and what the set looks like, kind of they go well together. We
Yes.
don't want them to fall into the set. We want them to stand out from the set.
Right.
So, so we do a lot with costumes and making sure that we're on the same page with them. And then beyond that, it's mostly like the director, the producers that we're heavily involved with, in the AD department. The assistant director, he does all the scheduling for everything.
Okay.
So we're really involved with them, just for making sure that things can be done in the right amount of time. And then I hang out with the hair and makeup people a lot, just because they're usually pretty fun,
Oh,
but I don't
yeah.
necessarily have to interact.
I remember I was just rewatching Raise a Glass to Love, and I could see the collaboration between costuming and production design, because Laura Osnes's wardrobe was very reflective of the colors of the Vineyard House. And I remember, like, there were a lot of
Yeah,
cranberries and mustard yellows. And when you saw the Vineyard House, it was almost a Spanish mission style, but I think also the whole vineyard be with the grapes and everything, like seeing how costuming played off of what production did with how they they decorated the house and different things like that. Like I totally pick up on stuff like that, and I think it's so
Yeah.
cool that you guys can have a relationship like that. And another movie where I saw it so clearly was The Wedding Veil Inspiration with Autumn Reeser
Mhm.
and Paolo Bernardini. It was like fall time, kind of like what you were saying. And a lot of the colors, even in the home that Autumn and Paolo were in, were like teals and turquoises and cranberries, browns, and it was reflective in their wardrobe as well. And I love seeing that collaboration and that cohesion, that's the word I'm looking for, happen in a movie because I think it makes it that much more aesthetically pleasing. And then it just
Mhm.
reaffirms what you're watching as you're watching it. You know what I mean? All the
Right.
colors and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And so part of the prep phase, it, we all we work directly with Hallmark significantly during the prep phase and throughout the whole process. And
Mm-hmm.
like we'll submit our vision boards, like what we're thinking for like the tone of each room and how it'll work.
Mm.
And then the
Mm-hmm.
same thing, costumes is doing the same thing. They're creating, all these vision boards of like how what the character will be wearing for each set. And so we have access to each other's work, so we can kind of use
Oh,
that to see
that's
where they're going and
cool.
what's going well.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so when Hallmark makes a comment to the costume designer about, oh, I don't like this or I do like this, then like I'll see those comments as well, and I'll be able to be like, okay, so we're going to go in that direction there. Then I'll try to go in the same direction over here. So, so it is very collaborating, especially during the prep phase.
Now, is there any involvement with your department when it comes to post-production at all?
Not really. Like I usually I'll be able to get to see kind of as it's how it's editing together, and if I have any issues that I see that's like a problem, I'll be able
Mm.
to like address it. And then a lot of times, like a lot of graphics, if we're doing them post, if we're not like actually making a graphic for a side of a building, we're actually putting it on in post, then
Mm-hmm.
I have to still build those graphics and get it to them. But typically,
Oh.
once it goes to post, it kind of turns into um, more of like the director will do a cut, and then the Hallmark has like a production cut that they'll do, and they'll. But I don't really have much of a say in any of that.
So building graphics, does that mean you had to kind of work a graphic design muscle that wasn't there, or what is that? What's that like?
Yeah, yeah. That's another like one of our like sub kind of departments within the art department is there's like graphics department, and I do have like a bit of a skill set in that, but like I'm not super great. So if it's like a simple graphic like a sign or something like that, like I'll maybe do that myself. Otherwise, I need to probably hire somebody to do some of the more complex things, or maybe I just don't have the time. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Can you talk about an experience as a production designer where it just was probably one of the most challenging in terms of logistically nothing was working out, a piece of material didn't get there on time, or can you just talk to us about a challenging experience you've had?
yeah. So I was the designer on Two Tickets to Paradise last
Okay,
year
yeah. You would
with
tell why that.
Ashley Williams. I know. Well, I was so excited. I got the call to go, and I was like, "Let me see what my schedule looks like." Yeah, I'm available.
Right, right.
And so I got there. I didn't like I was able to bring one of my friends as like a crew member, but other than that, it was all locals that were there, and so I didn't know a lot of how to make things how things work, I guess, in Hawaii versus in the
Mm.
mainland states. And it turned out that there's some challenging things. A lot of the stores that I'm familiar with as like go-to places to find set pieces, those just don't exist there, or
Oh,
they're something else I don't know about. And so it was challenging to figure out where to buy furniture or buy certain types of style of things. And then the
wow.
big one that was so there's like the opening scene, there's the airport, or not opening scene, it's like kind of mid, and there's the airport scene where she flies off. And we filmed that in what's a convention center is where it is actually being filmed.
Wow.
And so they've used this convention center for a lot of other movies, like TV shows. They did it for like Lost and I don't know, some other movies. So everybody was telling me like, oh, we do it all the time. Like it's easy. Don't worry about it. So I'm like, okay, great. We'll turn this into an airport. And then I started trying to find out how they've done it in the past. And what they had done in the past is they had um, rented all the elements from a shop in LA and had it put on a shipping container and shipped out to Hawaii.
Oh,
And that's how they did
snap.
it. And I'm like, well, I got like a week to go, and I don't know, like $5,000 budget for this set. Like I can't do that. It's not like an option. So it kind of became a thing where it's like, okay, we got to build all this stuff. We got to build like the desk that they're sitting on with the background and everything, and then being able to find those chairs. Like she's sitting on some like just airport chairs, and that was like came down to like the wire. Like the night before was when I finally got a hold of them and was able to get on set because they almost sat on folding chairs.
Oh my
It was quite a
God.
panic.
Oh my
So
goodness. Oh my
yeah,
gosh, that's a
so
story for
there's a
the
lot of
grandchildren, huh?
yeah.
Oh my goodness. So what oh dang, the question lost me. I lost it. I had it right there. I had it right there, Daniel. Well, what would you say to someone who wants to no, this is what I want to say. So, how did you get inspired? Because you have your own production company with Power 10 Films. How can you talk a little bit about your inspiration for that and how that came into fruition?
Yeah, so Powerton Film. So, like I said, I went to school for filmmaking. I didn't know I was going to go the art route, and
Mm.
so I specialized in documentary filmmaking, and that's kind of what I really enjoyed doing and wanted to kind of saw myself going in. And for a long time, I was kind of doing both things, like pretty heavily, and I created a couple documentaries, and it kind of merged into more of like a documentary style productions for like local businesses because that pays
Mm.
better.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that's kind of what Powerton Films was. Is it's kind of my outlet to do more behind the scenes, like more behind the camera type work, which I still enjoy doing and want to continue doing. So and between movies, I usually will jump doing that kind of making different kinds of commercials or productions for companies with that title.
Do you have an average amount of movies you do a year with Hallmark, or does it vary depending on just kind of their mood and what they're feeling like?
Well, it's I hope to do a lot, but it's all dependent on like the producers and if they were going to keep hiring me. Because every job, it's like
Okay, yeah.
I'm freelance, so it's like each job it is what it is. But I've the last couple of years I've been doing 5 movies every year, which is I didn't think that was even really possible. Like that's a lot of movies to do in one year. Um,
Mm,
but usually I'd say my goal is like 3 or 4 a year movies, and then if I can, do fifth or sixth, then that's great. But they're pretty time consuming. They take up a lot of your energy. Uh,
yeah.
they're about 2 months in total, like from start to when you're done, and it's just like I'm sure you've heard like it's a
Wow.
12-hour film day,
Yeah.
and then for art department you might be like I said you might be prepping or something at 8 o'clock, but the call time for the crew's not till noon, and that means they're going to be shooting till midnight, and then you're going to have to figure out how to wrap out that night. So I might be doing like a 16 18 hour day very easily, and so they're very exhausting, and then you'll get your weekend, but your weekend's just trying to like get ready for the next week. So
Right.
usually when when a production's over, I kind of want to take a break for a couple weeks at least before jumping into another one.
And like sleep for 14 days straight, I bet. Because
Yeah,
that sound wow.
exactly.
Well, thank you for your
Yeah,
work,
very
first of all.
exhausting. Yeah.
'Cause- well, can you talk a little bit about the difference you've experienced between doing a Christmas set and a non Christmas set
Yeah,
with Hallmark and what that's like?
yeah, definitely. Well, there's certain things in Christmas. I like doing Christmas movies probably a little. Well, I don't know if I like doing them better. I like them all, but
Yeah.
but Christmas movies have like some opportunities to do things that are a lot um, more like inherent. I guess they like
Mm.
you can make something really beautiful with Christmas lights very easily, and a lot of times
Yeah.
it doesn't apply necessarily in a non-Christmas thing, or like the way certain Christmas elements look on camera are just beautiful,
Yeah.
and then makes it maybe more challenging to do that same kind of feel for a summertime movie.
Mm.
But I'll still try to do it. Like if I can work in some kind of like a string lights or Christmas lights into a summer movie, I probably would. Um, but yeah, I think as far as differences, like they flow the same. You have to kind of think a little bit more about artwork on walls and things like that when it comes to non-Christmas movies, because
Okay.
usually if you the Christmas decorations will take up a lot of visual space, and so
Mm,
it's like
mm.
less normal, like less artwork. Whereas in a summertime movie, you don't have those, and so you have to kind of think of other elements. But as far as like the thought process, it's usually kind of the same. Um, Trying to fill the right kind of holes in the room and how you would see things, and then adding colors and yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna throw this question out there. If you could design like your ideal Hallmark movie, what would it look like?
Oh, I don't know. Ideal Hallmark movie.
Like, would it be on location
Um,
somewhere, you know?
oh, probably so. Yeah. I mean, I'll do another Hawaii movie for
Yeah.
sure.
Oh
uh,
man.
yeah. I mean, one of the perks is definitely like being able to go to some really cool places. Like last year, I was in Hawaii, I was in Connecticut, I was in Nashville. We did the Biltmore Christmas in Asheville,
Oh
North Carolina
yeah,
this year.
yeah.
Um, so we was there, and then in Arizona, I was in Tucson doing a movie there. So being able to travel is like super cool. So I
Mm.
would definitely pick a movie. I think I want to do one of the like the royal ones or something, like maybe like in France or something. Like
Yes.
that would be cool.
Oh, yes.
Although that would be challenging. I don't know if it would be hard to not speak English or like have
Oh,
like a crew that doesn't speak the same language. But going doing like one of those would be
oh man. I royal movies are some of my favorite because there's so much
cool.
grandeur, and I can imagine like what that
Yeah,
would translate for you in terms of like decorating or putting together the set or finding like the what's going to be your castle or your kingdom or whatever, and
yeah,
then getting that to look
yeah.
very grand and royal and pronounced. You know, that's the vibe of the movie. Oh, that would be
I,
so cool.
I've done a lot of Western movies being from Arizona, and so like the Victorian era of like furniture, like that's been something that I've always really enjoyed. And
Mm.
so like getting to like
Mm-hmm.
probably similar thing with doing a royal movie, getting to like pick those kind of like elements and have lots of that,
Mm-hmm.
which was that was what was really cool about the Biltmore Christmas movie is that we're
Mm.
at the Biltmore where everything is so old and like antique and like
Mm-hmm.
beautiful, like every chair is like $100,000 for like the chair or something like that. It's like
That's
ridiculous things that are just like built into the set. Gonna be a beautiful movie, so I'm excited that it's coming out.
me too. Me too. Oh, here's a random question. This one's really off the dome. Do you find when you talked about collaborating with the costumer, do you find yourself working with the same costumer on certain movies and you guys have developed a rhythm and you know kind of how each other's vibes are? Like, do you have certain departments on set where you've worked with the same people so you kind of have a rhythm when you go to a separate, like another, when you work on another project?
Yeah, that is very important. Like probably one of the biggest questions when we start a production, if it's a whole new crew, it's like how are these other people going to work? How do they operate? What are their methods
Mm,
versus what I'm
mm-hmm,
used to? And so
mm,
one thing that's been nice is um, a lot of the times these movies are produced by certain local production companies, like the Hallmark overseas, and then they hire another company that then hires the crew. And
mm,
so because of that, like a lot of times I'll have a similarity with who I work with. So like on this movie I'm on right now is Keith Nielsen, who's done a lot of Hallmark movies. He did Christmas Spectacular and pretty much all the ones that I've done. But
uh-huh,
so being with him and knowing like how his style is, and that I can just call him up at any moment and be like, "Hey, what's going on with this? What's happening with that?" Like that
yeah.
makes it super easy. And he's like he's in a hotel room like three down from me right now, so I know I can just go knock on his door. But having that kind of familiarity is definitely a great advantage. That if I didn't know him as well, I might question certain things or like be afraid to approach
Mm.
about certain things. And so, um, yeah, that's it's definitely an advantage.
So, what would you say to someone who wants to who either has an interior architecture background, and I'm not speaking for myself, even though I do have one. I just want to put that out there. But someone who either has an interior design background or after listening to our conversation, something sparked inside of them, and they're like, wait a minute, with what I can do, I could do XYZ within the production design department. What advice would you give for them getting started within this department to eventually be where you are now?
Yeah, well, I think like if you have any interest in it, like if either from like a designing standpoint that you're interested in learning how the film version of it goes, or if you're like in like I was more in the film side and kind of more acquired like the designing side of things, I think the probably the best thing to do is you need to get on a set that you can learn how the process works first. And so finding like a line producer or production coordinator, they're usually the ones who do the hiring of the
Mm.
crew and
Mm-hmm.
getting them to like connect you with like the right people, or finding a production designer that like uh, or somebody that works in the art department that can help get you kind of your foot in the door. And then once you're there, just kind of like pay attention to how things work and realize that every job is your interview for your next job.
Mm.
And like they they'll remember you if you do a great job. And so
Yeah.
um kind of having that mindset of like just always being on and just trying to make sure that you keep it going, because that's the hardest thing with this industry is it's just you're always looking for your next one, you're always trying to like
Mm.
keep going. And it's there's a lot of effort just involved in just keeping it going. So um but it's a great industry and a great um it's a great department, I think, if you're interested in design. It's a lot of fun. You get to meet really cool people and go really cool places. So
Yeah.
you want a job on my next set,
Huh? What
Dara?
happened? What happened? What happened? Oh man. Uh-oh. Wait a minute. Okay.
Yeah.
So, how does
Well,
someone
you're like a writer though. You should you need to be into the writing department for Hallmark. So
I guess Daniel
well,
see because that's like a whole other language I feel like screenwriting is from
I know. Yeah.
fiction writing. So, but how does someone even get to the point to even get on set? Like, what would you recommend? Like, are there websites they can check out? Or do they just stalk
Yeah.
imdb.com? Like, how do how do they
Yeah. Well,
even get on a set?
honestly, it's like there's no right answer because that's the hardest
Mm,
part. It's like
mm,
it took me like 8 9 months to like after I graduated before I even got like entertained with like an offer from anybody to be on a job. Like I just would send out my resumes and like nothing's happening. But
yeah.
it's kind of like take whatever method you need to make to get that connection going. I what I actually did, what got me my first job, is I looked up online and saw that there was a movie filming in my area, and
Mm,
I found the director's email address and I sent the director an email saying, "Hey, I just graduated. I want to get on this film set." And so he's like, "Oh, I got a spot for you in the art department." So that's kind of how it got
oh, that's
started.
so
And
cool.
yeah, and so it's like it could be that it could be like being like, "Oh, it's inappropriate to do this," but you know what? That's what's the loss, you know? And if I don't do it, so so yeah, I think that's probably the other ways would be try to find the a production company that's making these movies, figure out who's doing it, and then
Hmm.
try to figure out how you can get a hold of somebody on that set. And it might not you might not be in the department that you want to be in. Like there's certain
Mm,
departments like camera that's maybe you have to have such a skill set before they'd even like kind of entertain you. And so, but if you can get on in a different department in like locations or as a PA, and then pretty quickly once you've like shown that you're like a hard worker, then go to those people in the department that you do want to be in and be like, hey, on the next one I'd love to learn how to do this, or I'd like to be this department. Then they might bring you on in that. So like that's kind of thing, it's just try to get in any way and then quickly decide where you want to go. And yeah.
yeah. Well, Daniel, thank you so much for helping us go behind the lens here in our Dear Homework Masterclass. For people who may want to find out more about your documentary filmmaking, where can they go to check that out?
Yeah, I do have it's Powerton Films is my Instagram handle, I guess would probably be the best place. So power and it's the number Power 110 Films. And that's probably about it. I don't really post a whole lot. publicly about the productions I do.
Sure.
So like I have a private account, um, but yeah, that's probably the best way, So
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Daniel, thank you so much again. And listeners and viewers, you can find Daniel's information in the description if you're watching on YouTube or in the show notes if you are listening via podcast. Well, he's Daniel. I'm Dara. This is Dear Hallmark, and I will talk to you guys in the next episode. Ciao, my friends.